So back to an education. This one, your wife, the producer, she showed you this or talked about it.
I found it first of all. It was like a 10-page story in Granta, the literary magazine, and I read it just because I'm interested in Lynn. And I'd never,
Barber.
Yeah, and I'd never seen her write anything personal before, so that was kind of what drew me into it first of all. And then when I read it, I showed it to Amanda and I said, you should do something with this. Because, you know, I think you're a British independent producer, you're not in a position to pitch for the hot novel, and you've got to start looking around at things that might be actually available. So, you know, I said you should look at this, and she and Finola looked at it, and then they auctioned the piece, and when they started to talk about writers, I felt quite possessive for some reason of the material, so I said I'd like to have a go.
How would you, I think I heard you actually talking on NPR at one point a little bit about this. You actually took some liberties in order to make it into a movie with the material. There had to be, again, more cinematic elements.
Yeah, well, I think it wasn't a work of fiction, it was an essay, which meant that Lynn had provided really suggestions for characters. I mean, there was this very strong central relationship, but everything else was a bit sketchy, as it would be in an essay. So there were things I picked up and ran with. And yes, and I invented some things as well.
What did you invent?
Well, the whole C.S. Lewis section was mine, and that came because this sort of central touchstone scene of Jenny having seen Peter and Dominic, David and Danny steal a map. I took it from that I started to think of them as having developed this double act, a sort of Robert Redford, Paul Newman, Twickenham version of conning her parents. So I kind of spooled that back and spooled it forward so that she was involved in several cons. And when David says to Jenny, I bet I can persuade your parents to let you come away for the weekend, she says, I bet you can't. Then I knew that I needed something that was elaborate and cunning, that might actually convince them, and it played into all sorts of their own fears. You know, that here was somebody who wanted to show their daughter Oxford and who knew important people at Oxford, so of course they're going to go for that. So I was pleased with that, actually, the C.S. Lewis thing.
Oh, it was great. The thing that the movie captures, which I'm sure was in your script, is this sort of giddy, you know, you get caught up in her point of view very much at the beginning, and you're giving clues along the way of what's really going on, but you're caught up in it, and then the reality starts to sort of set in. Was that your?
Yes. I mean, I wanted the giddiness because one thing that I really identified with, and I think it comes from Fever Pitch, it comes from lots of things that I like as well, which is, you know, I think that suburban girl who is frightened of being left out, I think is a big story in popular culture, actually. You know, I grew up 30 miles outside London. I had to go to London to buy books, certainly to see movies, to see football games, to see bands. So all my time was kind of shuttling up and down on a train and really wanting to get to the middle of the city. And, you know, that's what Jenny wants. And she hasn't got parents who are going to be able to lead her to the middle of the city. And this guy comes and he doesn't say, you know, take off your clothes. He says, do you want to come to a concert at St John Smith Square? Do you want to come to this nightclub? Do you want to go and see people sing in Paris? And partly I think he's genuine in his desire to want to show her these things. He sees in her a chance to recreate himself, and the sex is not so interesting to him.
Interesting.